In this world, there's one man who refuses to follow the script.
We have rules here, you know that. And if you don't follow the rules, then what are we?
One man stands tall in the face of adversity.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
A man who rises above the ashes of hot takes.
What do you care what they say?
Easy for you to say they all love you.
It's just noise, man. You're really good at it. You might be great.
That man is Nick Kostos. And this is You Better You Bet.
If loving sports is wrong, I don't want to be right.
Where narratives are challenged and the truth is spoken.
I told you what was going to happen last week. If you didn't listen, that's on you.
This isn't talk, it's perspective.
It's not what you look at that matters. It's what you see.
This is You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
What's up, everybody? Happy and merry, magnificent Sports Monday to you and yours. This is You Better You Bet with Nick Kostos on Westwood One Sports, as we bring you the fastest show in all of sports. The show presented today and always by BetMGM. Make it legendary by downloading the BetMGM app and visiting BetMGM.com. And on this Monday morning, the world of sports absolutely on fire. And we are going to get to all the big stories, including, yes, the calendar does say it's 2026. But I'm going to tell everybody why it might as well be 1996 for the Oklahoma City Thunder as they get set to take on the Los Angeles Lakers. I promise I will make it make sense. I'm going to give bets for the entire second round of the NBA playoffs. I feel like I got a pretty good read on what we're going to see in this next round coming up in the postseason as we advance towards the conference finals and eventually the NBA finals. And while I'm on the beach this past week, I'm consuming a ton of sports content because I'm a sicko and I'm a psycho and I love this stuff. And I heard a lot of people say a lot of things about a lot of teams in the National Football League. 3 teams, the opinions on them really got under my skin, even while I'm on vacation. I'm going to tell all of you why you are dead wrong on the Cleveland Browns, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Los Angeles Rams. All our bets for tonight's action. Oh, baby, the playoffs are in full swing. This is great. All our bets for tonight in the NBA playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs, and Major League Baseball will close the show, and I'm planning on going undefeated. I don't know about you, but I ain't planning on losing. 310-840-4910 is the number, 310-840-4910, youtube.com/@thekostos, TheKostos. It is awesome to be back from vacation with all of you. I will say, and I texted Bill Zimmerman, our executive producer, I think on Thursday night when the Nuggets lost and the Oilers lost, and it was a really great sports week. And yes, I was really happy to go away with my family to Florida and had an awesome time. There were a number of moments where I'm thinking, man, I'd really love to come on the air and talk about all of this. Your boy put in work at the hotel bar last week, going down at the end of the night to watch games while my daughter was sleeping, watch the Knicks take the belt out and lay it to the Atlanta Hawks in Game 6, among others. Great sports week last week. Was great to spend time with my family, but very happy to be back with all of you here for the duration of the NBA, the Stanley Cup playoffs, and then later, suckers, hopefully for some time during the summer, but straight through here from now until the end of the NBA playoffs and the Stanley Cup playoffs. Now we'll begin officially the Magnificent Sports Monday edition of You Better You Bet, and we'll talk about the NBA from this past weekend, most notably the Sixers upsetting the Celtics on Saturday night in Beantown in Game 7. But we need to start the show with some really sad news in the world of sports, and this is starting to make its way out everywhere now, that legendary New York Yankees radio play-by-play voice John Sterling has passed away at the age of 87. Now, just in case you're listening right now somewhere around the country or watching the show and you're thinking, like, why are we talking about, a Yankees play-by-play announcer here on a national show? I'm very much of the belief that John Sterling was one of these announcers that transcends the team that he calls, right? The local team is the radio voice of the Yankees, and absolutely a figure known to sports fans nationwide. The voice, one of the voices, along with Michael Kay, of the New York Yankees dynasty when I was growing up, obviously winning their first World Series in '96, going on to win 4 more. Called the Yankees World Series win, obvious, against the Phillies as well in 2009, and continued to call Yankee games on radio just until the last couple years, with Dave Sims taking over on a full-time basis. John Sterling, in a world where, and not everyone falls under this umbrella, but I think especially with baseball you can make this case, right, where a lot of play-by-play announcing in Major League Baseball, and this sounds like an insult, but I don't mean it to be one, a lot of it can really be cookie cutter. And a lot of play-by-play broadcasters sound the same, right? Where you can turn on a broadcast and you don't know if this is X team or Y team, right? Which play-by-play, like who the voice is that's calling it, because a lot of them sound the same, their delivery is the same, etc. John Sterling, a true original. Someone who absolutely stood out and cut through. And whether you liked or disliked his style, which is absolutely loud and over the top, weaving humor in, and whether you found him to be funny or not, the attempt was obviously there. I did find him to be very funny. It is high. It is far. It is gone. All the home run calls catered on various players, whether it's an A-bomb from A-Rod, a Thrilla from Godzilla, Burn, Baby Burn. I mean, so many great ones over the years. Whether you liked it or didn't like it, you have to acknowledge that the man stood out. Absolutely an original. And I know a lot of people would look at the faux pas that John would make, right? It is high, it is far, it is caught in the infield, right? Where as he aged, right, and he died at the age of 87, he was calling games well into his 80s, and as he progressed in age, like he would make mistakes calling games, and it kind of became like something that Yankee fans would joke about, and people would take shots at him for. I think all of that stuff kind of adds into the mystique and the aura and the legend of John Sterling. And I try not to play this card terribly often, but I'll play it here. I've been doing this a long time in sports media, and I grew up in New York, and I've been living in New York almost my entire life, 25 years now this fall, since my freshman year at Fordham in 2001. Had the opportunity on numerous occasions to deal with John Sterling, interview John Sterling, speak with John Sterling, and I'm happy to say that all the things that you will read about him today and hear people say about him are true. That this was an exceptionally kind and sweet and a man who was unbelievably generous with his time to a young broadcaster like me, who he didn't have to be nice to, didn't have to take the time to sit down and speak with, but he did. And I'm far from the only broadcaster who will say this, right? I'm far from the only Yankee fan who will say this. Far from the only sports fan who will say this. And will point to the impact that this man made, not only in the booth calling games, but on the lives of many people. And I'm not going to tell you that like John Sterling changed my life or anything like that. I'm sure it's true for some people, right? That is actually true. But I can tell you that in a space, and you could say this about all people, right? Not everybody's nice. Not everybody's going to look out for you. Not everybody's going to give you their time. So when people are nice and are generous and do try and help you, I think it's important to recognize those people, whether they're public figures or not. And John Sterling absolutely did that. This is a tremendous loss for, first off, his family and friends, for the New York Yankees community, and I understand that a lot of people around the country hate the Yankees. I get it, but I hope that even if you hate the Yankees, you can find empathy in this situation, right? With someone passing away. A tremendous loss for New York Yankees fans and for sports fans. I feel comfortable and confident saying that there will never be another John Sterling calling baseball games or otherwise. Rest in peace to the legendary John Sterling, gone at the age of 87. Tom Verducci will join us coming up next hour on the show from Fox Sports and SI, legendary baseball columnist. Tom will talk to us about the life and career of John Sterling and the rest of the comings and goings in Major League Baseball. So needed to do that, especially as a Yankee fan. Even if you're not a Yankee fan, you need to be talking about John Sterling passing away today if you're doing any type of sports content. Rest in peace, John Sterling. And with that, we can start talking some NBA. And the Philly special that we saw on Saturday night in Boston, as the Philadelphia 76ers come roaring back from 3-1 down in their series against the heavily favored Boston Celtics, knocking off Boston, Philly advancing to the next round, a Game 7 win in Beantown, and now we get the Sixers and the Knicks, Game 1 of that series tonight. And we'll praise the Philadelphia 76ers coming up in moments, and they deserve the praise. They absolutely do. But I actually feel compelled to start on this Monday morning with the team that lost on Saturday night and blew the 3-1 lead, and we'll get to the Orlando Magic, another team that blew a 3-1 lead later this hour. But for now, let's begin talking about the Boston Celtics. Because I read, and I was watching, and I was listening while I was on vacation. And after I got back, like late Saturday afternoon, early Saturday evening, got back in time to watch the game, I consumed a ton of content surrounding this series while I was on vacation and after I got home. And I actually can't believe the things that people are saying about the Boston Celtics and specifically their head coach, Joe Mazzulla, after they blew this 3-1 lead and got bounced in the first round of the playoffs as a huge favorite. And I understand, and I will criticize Joe Mazzulla for one thing, and absolutely do that, and he deserves it. Because when Jason Tatum is ruled out on Saturday afternoon, so and my expectation was that Tatum was not going to play in Game 7. So he leaves, doesn't play the fourth quarter of Game 6 with left knee tightness. Like, you can't risk this. Him coming off the torn Achilles. And I actually think that the majority of people understand that you can't risk it. No matter what happens in Game 7, Jason Tatum can't play in that game. Win or lose, I'm not doing hindsight here. They made the right decision to not play Jason Tatum in the game. You can absolutely criticize, though, this wonky, weird-ass starting lineup that he threw out there in Game 7 against the Philadelphia 76ers. Derek White, Ron Harper Jr. Ron Harper Jr. Who? Like, they might as well have started his dad, Ron Harper Sr. Baylor Shireman, Luka Garza, and, of course, Jaylen Brown. I mean, that is, like, to me, this kind of seemed like, and like, Mazzulla had to know, and I understand that they both said he was going to play, and then, like, as we got closer to game time, obviously he's ruled out. You have to have contingencies, right? So I will criticize Mazzulla for this. This felt like, and I'm sure you have all felt this way, right? I actually have a vivid memory of being in, I don't know, maybe like 3rd or 4th grade, and I am unprepared to answer the teacher's question. I don't even remember what the question is. It's buried in the recesses of my mind. And I get called on by the teacher to answer the question, and I'm just like, I have nothing to say, and you have that moment where you feel everybody staring at you, and you don't have the answer, and you just start saying stuff. You gotta answer. You gotta say something. Joe Mazzulla seemed like that was the spot that he was in. I don't know what to do. Ron Harper Jr., the Baylor Shireman, Luka. What the hell was that? Hadn't played all season. Let's roll it out. Not in like Game 17 Not on like a Tuesday night in January against the Hornets. No. Game 7 against Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers. So yes, I absolutely think you can criticize Joe Mazzulla for Game 7. But this idea that like Joe Mazzulla should be fired for what happened in this series, and this idea that this Celtics season is anything other than a roaring success is insane to me. I know that we collectively, as sports, forget about sports fans, as people, but especially as sports fans, right? We have short memories. So it's tough to remember that coming into this season, and I'm not saying everybody felt, I felt this way, I was wrong. And I know not everybody felt this way, but I think a lot of people did. And I know that the Celtics kind of took a lot of pleasure, especially Jaylen Brown, who can't stop talking. Like, hey, Jaylen, like, you lost to the Sixers. Like, you don't have to keep calling Joel Embiid a flopper, even if he is. Like, you lost. Sorry. Jaylen Brown, among other Celtics, took pleasure in everyone that called this a quote-unquote gap year for the Celtics, following Jason Tatum blowing out his Achilles last year in the Eastern Conference semifinal loss to the New York Knicks. Boston, who played without Jason Tatum for the vast majority of the season. And I know, like, we all want to do this thing afterwards where it's like, well, obviously they were going to be really good. Really? Who thought so? Betting market didn't think so. A lot of really smart people that I know that love the game of basketball didn't think. Doesn't mean everybody thought so, but most people didn't. They were the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference this year and didn't play with Jason Tatum for the vast majority of the season. The 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. They won the NBA title 2 years ago. So yeah, is it the most aesthetically pleasing brand of basketball watching these guys chuck up 1 billion threes a game? Not when they don't go in. And I understand that. I get it. Live by the 3, die by the 3. But again, like, lest we forget, because we have short memories, that 2 years ago, not only did they live by the 3, they won the damn championship. Like, they won the NBA title with this guy coaching the team. And now we're going to do this thing where, like, he sucks, and, like, this season was a disappointment. Like, come on. Like, miss me with that. Like, let's tell the truth. Like, is it disappointing that the Celtics lost this series after building a 3-1 lead? Yes. Did they play with their food early in the series? Absolutely. Did Joe Mazzulla's Game 7 lineup make a smidge of sense? No. That can all be true. Also, he coached his ass off this year. And Jaylen Brown played his ass off this year. They won the championship a couple years ago. And yeah, like, this sucks. And if you're a Celtics fan, losing to the Knicks last year, that sucks. And I know you can point to whether Mazzulla's the coach or not, like the Tatum Brown era, like playoff losses that they've had. I get it. They won a title. Come on. We don't have to retcon this, turn this into, well, actually, it's all bad. No way. Just like, no way. And I'm not going to do this thing where, like, Joe Mazzulla sucks now because they lost Game 7. Joe Mazzulla deserves to lose his job because they lost Game 7. This season was an unbelievable success for the Celtics. And if anything, I think strengthens my resolve and my thought that this team is going to be at the top of the Eastern Conference for years to come. And it should surprise nobody if they win another NBA championship. The Tatum-Brown core should absolutely stay intact and stay together. I don't think that they will separate the core, Tatum and Brown. I think they absolutely should stay together. A bunch of young players contributed this season in a really positive, meaningful way. Mazzulla coached his ass off. Celtics will be back next year. And look, as a Knicks fan, am I happy they lost? Of course. Now my team gets home court against the Sixers in round 2. We'll get to that, right? And as a New York sports fan, I have no love for Boston teams, right? But I get paid to tell the truth on this show. And the truth is, sucks to lose Game 7. Sucks to lose the way they did. But anything other than a positive spin on this season for the Celtics, you're lying to yourself. Tell the truth. Great season. Not good season. Great season for Jaylen Brown. Great season for Joe Mazzulla. Great season for the Boston Celtics. And now you get Jason Tatum healthy and ready to roll next season in the Eastern Conference. We are just getting started here. Monday, back in the saddle here. You better, you bet, on Westwood One Sports. On the other side, oh baby, the Philadelphia 76ers tried to tell you earlier in the season, if this team can ever get healthy, they're going to make some waves. Problem for them. There's a wave on the other side of the tidal variety. Tidal. And it ain't just blue. There's some orange in there as well. Yeah, I'm an optimistic New York Knicks fan. What could possibly go wrong? We'll break down the rest of the NBA playoffs on the other side. 310-840-4910, youtube.com/@the Kostos. We are presented by the fine people at BetMGM.
rebound goes to Tyrese Maxey. And for the first time in franchise history, the Philadelphia 76ers have come back from 3-1 down. They take out the number 2 seed in the East, and the process is moving on to the second round.
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Kostos and the crew. Presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
If you're a rap fan, you have something very funny about... Here's Noah Eagle's voice, one to the beat from Duffel Bag Boy. So go and get your money, little duffel bag boy. NBC courtesy of The Call. This segment on You Better You Bet sponsored by Progressive Commercial Insurance, protecting small businesses with affordable coverage options. Get a quote today at progressivecommercial.com, progressivecommercial.com. How about those Philadelphia 76ers? Tortured for years. You know what? Not years. Decades by the Boston Celtics in the postseason. And you know, like you've seen the stats, and I'm only going to exaggerate slightly here. If they've played 100 times in the playoffs, the Celtics have won 99 up until this one. And now it's 99-2 in favor of the Celtics. And again, only a slight exaggeration with how things have gone in the postseason with Boston and Philadelphia. To the point that Joel Embiid was talking about it, saying it. Sixers fans, knowing it, wearing it. They hate losing to the Boston Celtics. And they come out in Game 7, thanks to, again, partly this insane lineup that Joe Mazzulla threw out there. And also, by the way, Jason Tatum plays in the game, and he's, when I say healthy, I mean healthy like he was like 2 weeks ago, let's say, not healthy like he was like 2 years ago. Who the hell knows what happens in Game 7? But what happened is what happened. The Sixers come out and they start strong, take an early lead, and they basically have the lead the entire game. And just to say this, before we spin it forward, that was an incredible Game 7. It was an outstanding Game 7 on Saturday night. And look, last night, we had the Canadiens Lightning. We'll do that later in the show. It was an epic Game 7 in the National Hockey League. The other Game 7s yesterday were terrible in the NBA. Like, here's the Orlando Magic pooping all over themselves for 48 minutes against the Pistons. And then we had a fun first half last night in Raptors-Cavs before Cleveland turned on the afterburners. Jarrett Allen with an incredible third quarter, leaving the Raptors in the dust. We'll get to the Cavs and the Pistons coming up in a little bit. But as far as like, the game itself goes, that was an awesome spectacle. A tremendous basketball game, ripe with drama from start to finish with the Sixers and the Celtics. Joel Embiid was magnificent in this game. And you could tell, and you don't have to be like someone like an astute observer to tell, that he was loving it. Woofing at Jaylen Brown, the hand gestures. I know, and I'll talk more about this in a bit, Knicks fans hate him. I like him. I think he's massively entertaining, and I think he is a tremendous player. Was he dirty a couple years ago with Mitchell Robinson? Yes. But I have to admit, I do find him pretty entertaining and pretty funny. VJ Edgecombe grew up in this series. He's magnificent. How about Tyrese Maxey down the stretch? Just like, this is like in a video game when you play like NBA 2K, and Tyrese Maxey's speed rating is 99. 99! Just blows past. He's playing at a different speed from everybody else. Blowing past people on the way to the basket. And Paul George, is he overpaid? Yeah. I'll tell you what, though. The most expensive role player in the history of role players, and he's damn good in this role for the Philadelphia 76ers. And now what you have, and this is not the first time I've said this. It's not the second time I've said it. This isn't the 10th time I've used this exact analogy this season to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. Because this has always been possible. And look, I thought the Celtics were... I'm not trying to do revisionist history here, right? But this has always been possible with the 76ers. And if you think back to a couple months ago, we had our friend, the whale capper Drew Dinsick from NBC Sports on the show, one of the most respected NBA betting minds out there. And we did an NBA champions draft. I took the Sixers as one of my picks because you can see the vision for the 76ers, right? You can see it. But in order for it to happen, it's like cashing a 5-leg parlay. So when we look at the parlay, right? Leg 1, Joel Embiid's healthy. We've cashed that so far, if you like the Sixers. Made it through one series and obviously didn't begin the series, but closed the series. Looks like he's going to play tonight in game 1, probable for the 76ers. So Joel Embiid, leg 1. Tyrese Maxey healthy. That's leg 2. He looks unbelievable. Leg 3, Paul George not suspended and looking like his head's in the game. You check mark next to that one. Leg 4, VJ Edgecombe. Hashtag making the leap. You're cashing it. He was incredible in that series against the Celtics. And I know he had a couple duds, but I mean, like, they won the series and he was great in the games that they won. Like, come on. Now, the 5th leg is the toughest one. And if you're a bettor, you know, like when you got a big parlay, right? And you got a bunch of legs you got to cash. You're scratching and clawing. You're fighting. You're scraping to get to that finish line. And the last leg is always the toughest. Now, you need all of those things to keep happening in order to cash. Because, yeah, if you construct a scenario and it's possible that it happens, it's not impossible. Embiid's healthy. Maxey's healthy. Paul George stays dialed in. Edgecombe keeps playing at this level. All of that keeps happening. The Sixers can go to the NBA Finals. I'm an optimistic Knicks fan, but I'm not delusional enough to think that this is a walkover series. I think the Knicks will win, but I'm not delusional enough to think the Knicks are just going to steamroll the 76ers here. The reason, though, why I like the Knicks in this series is if you like Philly, and it can happen, it can absolutely happen, you need all of these things to keep happening. And the big one is the first one. Can the big guy stay healthy? History literally says no. Not figuratively, it literally says it's not going to happen. That doesn't mean it can't. Things are what they are until they're not. It could happen. But if you're a betting man or betting woman, and you see that the Sixers are a pretty big dog in this series, Knicks about minus 260 at our show sponsor BetMGM, and you think, yeah, Sixers can absolutely beat them. They can, if they're full strength. And you could say the same thing about the Knicks, but the Knicks don't have the injury risk that the Sixers do. Fair or unfair? So am I a little nervous as a Knicks fan going into tonight? Of course. I'm always nervous. I've never seen my team win a championship. The Knicks, at least, win a championship. Of course I'm nervous. The Knicks absolutely need to win this series. And I expect them to win this series. We'll talk about them in a moment. But just last note on the Sixers for now, and then we'll break the game down more a little bit towards the end of the show. This Joel Embiid stuff, talking about how Sixers fans need to not sell their tickets to Knicks fans. And how when these two teams played in the first round of the playoffs a couple years ago, which was like right after my daughter was born, like we're in the range of like when my daughter was born, basically, a couple years ago. My daughter turns 2, by the way, on Wednesday. Early happy birthday to my daughter, Colette. That it sounded like Madison Square Garden in Philadelphia, because Knicks fans absolutely took over. I will take this opportunity, and I think Philly sports fans are great, and I mean that sincerely. Like, do you all understand how pathetic that is? Like you're some curtain-jerking jabroni, small market, that you have to like beg your fans to not sell tickets to Knicks fans so your arena doesn't sound like Madison Square Garden. Like, what is that? That like Embiid and like the Sixers have to like beg, like what's like Philly? What's happening here, guys? How is this possible? You're a great sports town. I'm not insinuating otherwise. You're passionate. You're diehards. And I think that, Philly and New York sports fans don't really like it. I think we're basically two sides of the same coin. How do you let this happen? Like, do better, guys. Come on. If the shoe were on the other foot, you would say the same thing to New York Knicks fans. Credit, though, to the Sixers for getting it done, coming back from 3-1 down, exercising the demons in green and white, and bouncing the Boston Celtics from the postseason. You better you bet on this Monday. Nick Kostos here with you on Westwood One Sports. All right. Let's talk about my Knicks. The New York Knicks fall behind in the first round series against, and I know I was gone for a while, right? I'm going to give you quick thought on the Hawks series, right? Fall behind 2-1. Back-to-back one-point losses to Atlanta. CJ McCollum's torturing the Knicks for a couple games. And I got to tell you, I'm being real with you, right? I'm always honest with you, right? I'm fearing the worst. I expected the Knicks to come back and win the series. But you know what? That's always that feeling. It's always sitting, right? It's always sitting there like when you're watching a movie, right? And you're expecting something insidious to happen. You're watching a TV show and you're expecting a heel turn, right? The music starts to get a little more intense and the camera shots start to cut a little quicker and your heart starts to race and you start thinking, oh my God, what's about to happen here? Is something bad about to happen? And yeah, I'm lying to you if I'm telling you that I wasn't thinking something bad was about to happen. But in the end, the New York Knicks struck me as like a really, 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 really hungover guy who's like gets absolutely smashed after they win game one and is just going through the motions, hungover as you know what, through game two and game three. And then after game three, someone dumped a bucket of ice cold water over their head and they woke up and said, you know what? No more. Let's pull out the belt and let's go to town. And let me tell you something. I had a great vacation with my family. Incredible time in Palm Beach. By the pool. By the beach. My daughter loving it. Delicious meals. Just loved it. Best part of my vacation. Watching the Knicks take a 60-point lead against the Hawks in Game 6. And destroying that team. Dyson Daniels, you want to be a tough guy and try and put, like the Fujiwara armbar on Mitchell Robinson when you're down by 50. Great job, Atlanta. Showing all that. Where was that fight when the Knicks are up 50 points on that ass? Yeah, that's right. And now, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful to the Sixers. I just told you there's a path for it to happen, for the Sixers to upset the Knicks. I'll tell you what, though. No excuse. 0.0 excuse for the New York Knicks not to go to the NBA Finals. They have to go to the NBA Finals. Now, if like Jalen Brunson gets hurt, or like Cat gets hurt, obviously all bets are off. But you could say that, what if SGA gets hurt? What if Wemby gets hurt? Anthony Edwards is hurt for the Timberwolves. Luka Doncic, per Brian Windhorst of ESPN, isn't close to returning for the Lakers. We see this happen a lot, right? But pending health, zero excuse, zero for the Knicks not to make the NBA Finals. And yes, I'm a Knicks fan, and I'm honest about that. And yes, if you're watching the show, over my shoulder, you can see I've got New York Knicks paraphernalia here on my setup. I love them. I'm dying to see them win a championship. Hell, I'm dying to see them get back to the NBA Finals. So yes, I acknowledge that I want it to happen. But I don't lie to you on the show. I shoot you straight. There is no reason for them to not make it. None. None. And I don't care if the Sixers, if the parlay cashes, and you get all of these things happening for a 7-game series, the Knicks should still win. They're better, they have home court. Period. Period. And I'll tell you what, Detroit, Cleveland on the other side, I'm not, and maybe I should be, I'm being real though. I think the Knicks beat either of those teams in a 7-game series. I'll take it a step further. I think that Knicks Sixers is the Eastern Conference Final. Because if the Sixers win this series, the thought is that the parlay's cashed, right? And Embiid was healthy, and Maxey was healthy, and Edgecombe keeps playing well, and Paul George keeps his head on straight. That's what needs to happen for the Sixers to win the series. And if that happens and they keep it up, they will beat either Detroit or Cleveland in the Eastern Conference Final. This is the Eastern Conference Final. The Knicks better win this series. And I'm not just saying that to appease me, New York Knicks fan. No. They need to win this series because it's all out there in front of them. No excuses. And if they don't, you might think this is dramatic to say or a hot take. It's not. The Knicks fired Tom Thibodeau after last year because they needed a coach that they felt, and I felt this also, to get them over the hump. Here's the hump. It's time to get over it. And if they can't, and they lose to Philly, or they beat Philly and lose to Detroit or Cleveland, and everybody's healthy, and you can't make an excuse. You can't say, oh, well, Jalen Brunson didn't play, or Karl Anthony Towns didn't play, or OG Anunoby was out. Whatever it is. Mike Brown's got to go. And I want Giannis Antetokounmpo in blue and orange next year. They don't get it done now. I don't think it's ever happening for this core. It's time. It's time for the New York Knicks. And if it doesn't happen, time's run out on this core, and time's run out on Mike Brown. Coming up next, we'll talk about the Cavaliers and the Pistons and what to expect in the Western Conference in the NBA playoffs. You better you bet on this Monday on Westwood One Sports.
the Pistons will win their first playoff series in 18 years, overcoming a 3-1 deficit to keep their dream season alive. 3 consecutive wins, and they're headed to the second round.
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Kostos and the crew. Presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
I think that music bed works really well with the Orlando Magic. Losing. And they just fired their coach. Literally. Like during the commercial break. We'll tell you all about it in a second, but first, we got to tell you about our show sponsor at BetMGM. You need to log into the BetMGM app to receive your Any Sport Parlay Boost token. To use the Parlay Boost token, add a parlay wager made up of any sport wagers to your bet slip and activate the token. If you win your wager that was made with the token, you'll receive extra winnings. Download the BetMGM app today. Moments ago, like actually moments ago, per Shams Charania of ESPN, the Orlando Magic have fired head coach Jamal Mosley. This should be a surprise to nobody that actually pays attention to the NBA. This was absolutely, even if the Magic had beaten the Pistons in the first round, if they hadn't gotten to at least the conference finals, Jamal Mosley was going to be out of a job. So Mosley fired, absolutely had to happen with the way this season went for Orlando. You know, preseason win total of 50.5. Just a brutal regular season for this team. Zero offense for much of the year. Now, they did pull it together towards the end, right? Annihilated Charlotte in the final play-in game. 3-1 series lead against the 1-seed Pistons in the Eastern Conference. And if Franz Wagner doesn't get hurt and misses the final 3 games, Orlando probably moves on to the second round. I'm comfortable saying that. If Franz Wagner doesn't get hurt, Orlando probably wins one of the final 3 games of the series. Maybe it's not Game 6 with how Orlando went historically cold in the second half of that game and carried it over into Game 7. But I'll tell you what, they needed every bit of 45 points the Pistons did from Cade Cunningham in Game 5 to get it to Game 6. I think Orlando probably closes it out with the healthy Franz Wagner. But even with that being true, you can't bring Jamal Mosley back. Now, the Magic are screwed. This team is up against it in a huge way. And we talked about this before the playoffs started. Because Paolo Banchero's making $50 billion, and Wagner's making $50 billion, and Jalen Suggs, who looks like me on the 4th of July after 17 beers shooting jumpers, is making $50 billion. Bunch of young draft. Anthony Black hasn't been great. What do you do with this team? Now, you're not going to fire Paolo. You can't. Who's taking that contract? So what do? You fire the coach. And we'll see who coaches them next. Maybe it'll be Billy Donovan, who once upon a time, remember, almost took the Orlando Magic coaching job before returning to the University of Florida. Maybe it'll be Donovan. We'll see who takes that job to coach this team next year. I fear, even with Paolo showing up in a big spot, he was great. He was like the only Magic that played well yesterday, the only Magic player. I fear that this team is probably screwed long term. Here's $1 million first-round picks for Desmond Bane. Good player. Doesn't seem like it was worth it for the Orlando Magic. And the Magic, and you normally don't spend this much time on an 8 seed, but they are pretty interesting, right? It reminds me of like watching Looney Tunes as a kid, when Wile E. Coyote, chasing Roadrunner, would run off the cliff and literally be running on air. Feeling himself, right? Like, yeah, he's playing above his skis. And then he'd look down and realize that there was no ground underneath him. Splat. The Orlando Magic went splat against the Detroit Pistons. Ton of credit goes to Cade Cunningham and the universally criticized Tobias Harris, who I don't want to say single-handedly because Cade was great in the game, but look, like Tobias Harris was a very worthy second banana, and Paolo Banchero didn't have one yesterday. A very worthy second banana. 30 points for Tobias Harris as the Pistons overcome a 3-1 series deficit. Again, I think they lose if Franz plays, but he didn't. And Detroit on to the second round, where they are favored in that series, have home court against the Cleveland Cavaliers, who were tied at halftime against the Raptors in Game 7, and then just put pedal to the metal and just dusted Toronto. And great job by the Raptors even getting to that point. But the Cavs dust them in Game 7. I look at that series, Cleveland and Detroit. I think Cleveland's got more good players. I like the Cavs at a plus money price to beat the Pistons and advance to the Eastern Conference Final. We'll talk more NBA playoffs as the show moves along. Hour 1 done. Hour 2 for you coming up on the other side. We will start the hour talking baseball and remembering the late, great John Sterling with the legendary Tom Verducci of Fox Sports and SI.
biggest names in the business are on You Better You Bet with Nick Kostos.
Hey, this is Joe Buck, and you have done it. You have found it. You are listening to You Better You Bet. Great decision.
Hi, this is Kevin Harlan of CBS, Westwood One, and TNT, and I'm listening as you do every day to You Better You Bet with the most handsome single man in the radio business. A man who, if I was not married for 38 years, I might consider myself the kind of guy that can electrify a listening audience and a crowd of bystanders watching him do what he does so well each and every day. Continue to listen right here on You Better You Bet.
This is You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports, brought to you by BetMGM.
The magnificent Sports Monday edition of You Better You Bet rolls on. Nick Kostos, our crew, and you here on Westwood One Sports. Feels great to be back in the saddle after an awesome week away in Florida with my family. It was a great sports week last week. I was paying attention to all of it, which may have caused an argument or two with my wife. Shout out to her, a very, very, very patient woman. Loved the first hour, breaking down the Sixers win, coming back from 3-1 down, beating the Celtics on Saturday night. Why I think this was a great season, not a good season, a great season for the Boston Celtics. And if you think the Celtics should fire Joe Mazzulla because they lost Game 7 at home, you are so lost, there's like nothing that we can do for you. You will be in the wilderness forever. Why the New York Knicks, 0.0 excuse for the Knicks to not make the NBA Finals, and why Giannis needs to be a Knick next year if they don't make it. And we told you at the end of the hour about the Orlando Magic firing Jamal Mosley following the team's loss yesterday in Game 7 to the Pistons. And I've said Billy Donovan makes a lot of sense to be maybe the next head coach of this team. We got a report like 2 minutes ago in real time that Donovan emerging as a front runner to be potentially the next head coach of the Orlando Magic. We will get to the Western Conference NBA playoffs, Thunder Lakers, Wolves Spurs, and the disaster that is the Denver Nuggets a little later in the show. We will do some National Football League as well. We've got some news on the Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers that we will bring you a little later in the program. Joe, we started the show today with the passing of the great John Sterling, legendary New York Yankees radio play-by-play voice, passing away at the age of 87. And, you know, my experience with Sterling growing up as a Yankees fan in New York, the voice of the dynasty, and what a tremendous loss that is for Yankee fans, baseball fans, and sports fans. Joining us right now to discuss not only that, but everything happening in Major League Baseball. I think he is the premier voice, and I've said this when he's joined us on the show before, the premier voice on Major League Baseball in this country for a long time, doing an awesome job for our friends at Fox Sports and Sports Illustrated. He's always generous with his time. Always appreciate him popping on You Better You Bet with me, Nick Kostos, the great Tom Verducci. Tom, happy Monday. Thank you very much for the time. How's it going on this morning?
Oh, it's going great. Love being here. Thanks for having me.
Tom, let's start with John Sterling, and you've been doing this a long time, one of the most trusted voices ever when it comes to breaking down Major League Baseball. How do you put his career in perspective as someone who obviously transcended a local broadcast to become a national name and figure?
Yeah, it's hard to really encapsulate it, but I'll start with this. He typifies why a radio voice in baseball is just part of the fabric of this country, not just in sports. You know, as the season comes along, the weather starts to warm up, we get more mobile, we're in our cars, we're at the beach, we're going on vacation. The one constant is, if you're a baseball fan, you're listening to the game, not always on streaming devices, but, you know, listening on the radio. And John Sterling's voice was the voice not just of the Yankees, but of the greatest dynasty of the free agent era. So he called so many successes and championships that he's got a special place, I think. You know, again, you think about local announcers in baseball, I think they mean more to a community and to a fan base than any other sport. Part of that is because they play so many games, right? But John, to me, I think about, and I knew John going back to his days before the Yankees with the Atlanta Braves. And I can tell you this in all honesty, I never saw him at the ballpark without a smile on his face. John Sterling, you know, even into his 80s, doing games, and he rarely missed a game, every single day in a grind of a baseball season, I never heard him complain, never saw a frown on his face. Every day he would show up, and this is radio, like he's going on TV with the nicest suit, the lapel collar, everything perfect, the tie buttoned up there. And it was like he was going, and I know he's a fan of opera and Broadway musicals, like he was going to the opera, and he was excited about it, like it was his first day. Listen, we all should be so lucky to go to work, not just for one day, but for the length of your career with the amount of happiness that John Sterling brought.
Do you think, Tom, in a way, John Sterling's passing is, and this is not to say that current baseball radio play-by-play guys are not great, because many of them are. It kind of feels like to me, and you're a little older than me and probably have better perspective than I do on this, it kind of feels like the end of an era a little bit, like that era of radio play-by-play in Major League Baseball as we advance into the streaming age. Do you kind of feel that way at all about this?
Yeah, in some ways, I think you're right. He is definitely from a different generation, right? And the people he grew up listening to. And most broadcasters are influenced by the people they grew up listening to. Vince Scully would always talk about listening to Red Barber. And Red Barber used to tell him, don't try to copy me. Be yourself. You can learn from others, but the key to being a really good broadcaster, is being yourself. And he said, if you try to copy somebody else, you're missing out on the best person or the best broadcaster you can be. Don't water your own wine, is what he told him. And I think that still is always and will always be true. So John Sterling was true to himself. But you make a good point. The business has certainly changed in a very short period of time. But I still think that the voices, unique voices, genuine voices, I don't think anybody wants to hear anybody shouting and you can tell that it's manufactured. And that's why I say with John Sterling, before the mic was turned on, the enthusiasm was there. So maybe it wasn't your shtick. It didn't really maybe hit some people's ears the right way when he got excited or he had those home run calls. But I can tell you it all came from a genuine place.
And this actually, I guess it's kind of a criticism, right? Where a lot of play-by-play voices can be a little cookie cutter in their delivery. I think he absolutely stood through and cut through and was really great. Even the faux pas, I think, were celebrated by John Sterling. Just a legendary career, and again, grew up listening to him, and what a tremendous loss at the age of 87. And with that, Tom, let's talk some Major League Baseball, because I've been really, really excited by the start of the season. A lot going on, obviously, and just kind of thinking about it before the show. In my opinion, I think the biggest story thus far of this season, now that the calendar has turned to May, looking at some of these big market teams with high payrolls or recent track records of success, right? The Red Sox, the Astros, the Mets, the Phillies, and the struggles of these teams, a couple of them firing their managers. Of those four teams, do you see any of them turning it around this season in any dramatic way?
It's funny. I think the one team that has the worst record of them, the New York Mets, I'm befuddled as to why they're this bad. I think the Red Sox have some systemic problems, especially now the Crochet injury. I just don't think that's a very deep lineup at all. I think their ceiling is very limited. The Astros just have way too many injuries, and I know they've been a great second half team many times, and you got to be really careful about counting them out. But man, this is a Mount Everest for them to climb in terms of the health of the pitching staff, especially. The Phillies are going to be okay. I truly believe that. Again, they're like the Red Sox to me. Their lineup is a little too shallow, and nobody makes a trade this time of year. So somehow they've got to get it in gear with really no cleanup hitter to speak of, to be honest with you, and a lineup that just falls off in the back half. The New York Mets, to me, have the pieces in place to be a good team. I know Soto was out earlier, and now Lindor's out. I get that. That's part of baseball. But you look at their roster, they should be a better offensive team than I think they are. I'm not saying they're a great team, but that team should be at least an 85-win team. And I still think they'll find their surface at some point here and get on a run. But as you know, you get behind this far. Like I've always said, to be a playoff team, you can afford a bad month. You can't afford two bad months. And that's where the Mets are at now, where they have to now play with urgency. They're so far underwater here in the first week of May. They've got to start turning around now. You can't be sitting around if you're the New York Mets and saying it's too early. But again, I wish I could give you a better take on why they've struggled so much. I know you can dive into some numbers here, why the offense hasn't been good, but I'm talking about the talent that they have there. They should be a better team.
I understand, Tom, that this is entirely guesswork here. I'm asking you to guess, right? Because the Mets did come out with a public vote of confidence for manager Carlos Mendoza. If you have to guess, do you think Mendoza survives this season as the manager of the New York Mets? And when I say this season, I don't mean he'll be the manager game one next year, but survives this season as the manager of the New York Mets.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's probably 50-50, to be honest with you, because there's no question he's on the hot seat right now, no matter what the president of baseball ops said. I mean, that's just, it's just standard procedure when you try to take some heat off your team. But yes, I mean, as I said, the urgency now is to win. And the worst thing, and you saw this is why Philadelphia and Boston acted so quickly. If you're a big market team, you mentioned this with the payroll, the prices you're charging, the worst thing to do is you're non-competitive by the time school lets out and the big walk-up time of year comes in the summer months. And if people think your team is boring, which was the case with the Red Sox, by the way, not just bad, but boring, you're going to take a hit in terms of viewership, ticket sales, all those things. So it's a way to sort of not just get back in the race, but economically to live up to the investment you put into the team. So I don't know that there's a ready-made manager out there who's going to drop in on the New York Mets and change things. But listen, I said, you can't really make a trade. There's not much you can do changing your personnel on the team. There is some jolt to changing a manager. I would not deny that. But, I think with Mendoza's case, and not to say he's done anything specifically wrong, but it is the easiest fix. And listen, we've seen this now operate. This is the way teams operate now, right? I think in the last 20 months, more than half the teams in baseball have changed their manager. How many teams have changed their president of baseball operations or GM? Very few. They're the ones who have the runway here, not the managers. It's the easiest change to make, and it's sort of like this trend that front offices now buy into. That hey, we're not playing up to par. It can't be our the way we put the team together. It can't be our coaches, although in some cases they bit the dust too. Let's change the manager.
And what's funny about that is I think if you ask most Met fans, maybe they want Mendoza out. I think they probably want David Stearns out even more. You bet on this Monday morning. Our guest, the great Tom Verducci, Fox Sports, MLB Network, and Sports Illustrated, talking Major League Baseball here on Westwood One Sports. Tom, I'm pretty certain, I didn't really pay a ton of attention in science class, but I think it may be like a scientific theorem that if some teams that we expected to do well are disappointing, that there have to be some teams that we expected to maybe not do so well that are surprising. And I will say, it is kind of a delight here on Monday, May 4th, to look at the standings in Major League Baseball and see the Athletics, who don't even have a city next to their name, in first place in the American League West. And how about the Chicago White Sox, their recent run of good form? Murakami launching bombs, it seems like every single night for the White Sox. A game and a half out of first place in the American League Central. So what about those two teams, the A's and the White Sox, and their chances for success moving forward this season?
Yeah, pretty interesting. Both teams really could bang the ball. Murakami, you mentioned, I think a lot of teams missed the boat on him. He kind of fell to the White Sox. If you watch the way he swings the bat, the way he sets up, it's like a mirror image of Shohei Ohtani. And I'm not saying he's Shohei, but the way he leverages the baseball, he just crushes fastball. He's got a swing built for home runs. And we know about the A's offense. I mean, Nick Kurtz has just been, on fire the last couple of years. I mean, plug-and-play guy in that lineup. I don't know if either team has enough depth to survive 162 on the pitching side to be a playoff contender, but I can see both teams hanging in there. But you make a good point. It is a zero-sum game in Major League Baseball, and if we do have teams that we thought were contenders like the Astros, the Red Sox, Phillies, the Mets on the downside, it makes sense, stands to reason, somebody is above water here. And look at the central divisions in both leagues. Right. 7 of the 10 teams have winning records here in the first week in May. Does it hold up that way? No, not all 7 are going to finish with a winning record. But I think they're all showing that they're all competitive teams. Cardinals are way better than we thought. The Pirates are a really good team. Now, I was crazy enough to pick the Pirates as a playoff team.
I loved that, Tom, by the way, when you did that. I loved that when that came out.
I saw them in spring training, and I try to identify a team, and I think is going to come a little bit quicker than people think. Everybody could see their young pitching, right? I mean, you go to their camp and you watch guys throw, and it's eye-popping. And they do have the highest four-seam velocity in baseball, and it's playing out that way. But I mentioned with the Athletics and with the White Sox, depth could be a problem over the course of the season. I do worry about with the Pirates. That was my one concern, that these young pitchers haven't run the marathon yet, and how much they have in the tank based on, when we get to August and September when it's time to decide playoff spots. that still needs to be seen.
And to your point, Tom, just to how good the NL Central has been, right? The Pirates are 3 games over 500 and are in last place in the NL Central. Only 3.5 games out, but still 3 games over and in last place, speaking to your point on the teams in the National League Central. Now, the context for this question for our audience, right, who's maybe locked into the NBA and hockey, right, with those postseasons in full swing, the NFL draft a couple weeks ago, is I think, the stock answer here is it's the Dodgers, and maybe that'll be your answer. But for people that look at the standings today on Monday, May 4th, the Braves have the best record in baseball, just lost Ronald Acuna to the DL, but have the best record in baseball. The Yankees have a better record than the Dodgers. The Cubs have a better record than the Dodgers. Now, the answer can be the reigning 2-time defending World Series champion Dodgers, Tom, but if I asked you right now, who is the best team in baseball and why, which team would Tom Verducci say?
Well, if you ask me, what roster I would take the Dodgers. They're not playing like the best team in baseball right now, but it's kind of the way they play, right? I mean, Blake Snell is only now coming back on rehab. I forget what the over-under was on the win total. It was over 100. It's like 103, 104. I would definitely take the under because it's just not how the Dodgers play. They don't press the accelerator to the floor to win 111 games the way they did a few years ago and then go out in the first round. It's all about managing 6 months with especially your pitching and be locked and loaded when those playoffs start. So this is kind of what they do. I'm not saying they mail it in, but they certainly take the foot off the gas, especially in April and May. Really impressed with the way the Yankees are throwing the ball. I mean, their pitching is locked down great right now. Now, you look at their schedule, I think they've played only 6 teams that have a winning record right now. Now, part of that is, we thought the Red Sox were good and the Astros were good, but they're not. So when I say they're beating on teams with losing records, they're beating on good teams. They're just not playing well. But their MO of winning is it's kind of bulletproof, actually. They hit home runs like nobody's business, right? So they change the game with 1 or 2 swings. They don't need to string hits together. Hard to do in today's game. But this pitching, especially the starting pitching, has just been lights out. And I think that is not an anomaly. I think they could wind up, along with Seattle, to me, I always like their pitching, a top 2 or 3 starting rotation in all of baseball. And with their offensive firepower, yeah, they're the best team in the American League right now. And no offense to Toronto because they are the defending champs in that league. But right now the Yankees look really good.
And just to your point, Tom, Aaron Judge is the favorite to be American League MVP. Ben Rice, with his tremendous start, is the 4th choice on the board to be American League MVP. Cam Schlittler is the 2nd choice to win American League Cy Young, and his teammate Max Fried is the 3rd choice right now to win American League Cy Young. Been a great start to the season for my New York Yankees. Final question, Tom, and you're always generous with your time, and I love when you join us on the show. We are now into May, right? So we'd say the season is more than a month old, obviously, right? What are your early impressions thus far of ABS in Major League Baseball?
Well, I liked it coming in, but if I'm surprised at anything, I'm surprised at how seamless and popular it is. Like, it goes quickly. We all knew that, but when people now see it in practice, 15, 16 seconds to decide a challenge, it's great. I love the fan engagement part of it.
And they hate the umpire, right? They just want the umpire to be wrong, it feels like.
Yeah, they do. I think the players like it. I think that players are still figuring out sort of the strategic element. I think too many managers started out saying, let's save our challenges. Let's not burn our challenges early. And it was a very passive-aggressive approach. And if I've got especially a veteran hitter who knows the strike zone or my catcher who I trust a lot, if your gut tells you to challenge, go ahead and challenge. I want to really empower my players because you can flip at bats and sometimes indirectly games earlier than the 9th inning. Very few games are actually decided in the 9th inning. So I would not stress, hey, let's save a challenge for late in the game. If you call it, especially the guys you trust, if your gut tells you that pitch was missed, go ahead and challenge it. And I think teams are just starting to figure that out. Like Ryan Jeffers of the Twins, I call him the ABS whisperer. He's flipped more at bats than anybody. He's getting more strikeouts than a lot of relief pitchers. So, but to answer your question, I'm really surprised at how seamless and popular it really is. I think the fans really dig it. I do like the strategic element of it. And I think in a lot of cases, though, it shows how good umpires are. Like I did a game the other day for FS1, and Willie Traynor was behind the plate. He's only 28 years old. He has the best accuracy rate in Major League Baseball. When you get to the big league, it's like Connor Griffin getting there at 19. You get to the big leagues as an umpire at 28, you're pretty darn good. And these young umpires now have been trained on this system. So it's not like, hey, this is my strike zone tonight, boys. You better swing the bat. It's you're calling the defined strike zone, and the younger umpires tend to grade out better. And I think, as you said, fans want to hate the umpire. I get that. And if you have a bad day for an umpire, man, you can't hide. For years we've always had lights on the scoreboard that show when a player makes an error. Now we have that for umpires. But for the good ones, they also deserve credit and how often that they're right.
I was going to let you go after. Just one more one. This can be a really quick answer, Tom. I just thought that was really interesting. Do you think that we're entering a period now where, let's say, 5 years from now, right? 5-10 years from now, because, I'm in my early 40s, and it feels like for my entire life, the sentiment has been umpire, even if it's not true for all of them, that umpires stink in Major League Baseball. I thought that was so fascinating what you said about some of these younger umpires and that they're really good. Do you think we're about to enter a period of time where the worm's going to turn a little bit and there will be a positive sentiment from fans towards umpires? It sounded like that a little bit. I thought it was interesting.
I do think so. I mean, listen, it's part of baseball tradition, right? Yeah, everybody thinks the umpire's against them. I get it. But think about this. If you're a veteran umpire, and now this ABS system has rolled along, and a lot of the younger umpires, as I said, they kind of were groomed on this in the minor leagues. But if you're an older umpire, you've called the game one way. And now you really have to change, and you have to change on the fly in front of public criticism. That's obvious, right? So I think as those umpires age out, and it is hard, man. You watch a Major League Baseball game, you see how the velocity, is gone through the roof, how the pitchers are moving more than they've ever been before. It's tougher to umpire than ever before, right? So the younger eyes, the guys who actually physically can get in a better position to call pitches, definitely have an edge. So I think you're right. And I think if you look at the numbers, to me, and I tend to look at this at the end of the year and sometimes middle of the year, it does seem like the younger umpires are grading out higher. So as we get into the first generation of umpires who are trained entirely on the ABS system, you make a good point. I think there's going to be a time where we really appreciate that more. But I just hope we don't get the full-on robo system at all, where we don't have umpires. I still like the human element. I still want that guy behind the plate calling most of the pitches. I don't want, as successful as this is, it's like, man, if you like ice cream, don't have it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And this is one of the cases with ABS. You like it, it's good. Don't ask for more. It's really good right now.
We have ABS just basically in robo umpires all the time. I think the obesity problem in America may be even worse. Tom, you're so great, man. I love when you join us on the show. Really appreciate the time. Stay well. We'll catch up with you down the road.
Thanks so much for having me. Really enjoyed it.
Tom Verducci joining us here on You Better You Bet. Great thoughts from Tom on the legendary John Sterling, who passed away at the age of 87. That Sterling showed up to call games on the radio in a suit and tie, and you always see that in the videos that get posted of Sterling. And what a nice man he was off air, and I can attest to that in the times that I dealt with John Sterling in my career. What a good man he was, and a legendary broadcaster, and thought Tom's stuff on the umpires at the end was great. Are we about to enter a period of time where people actually like umpires in Major League Baseball? He seems to think so, and I tend to agree. 310-840-4910, youtube.com/@the Kostos. We'll take a quick break, and on the other side, we'll talk NBA playoffs. And joining me to do that will be the legendary, and I got to tell you, I promo his YouTube page every time he comes on. You want to talk about crashing out. We got to crash out after the Celtics lost in Game 7 on Saturday night to the Philadelphia 76ers. Celebrity Celtics fan and the star of Sirius XM NBA Radio, Justin Termini, next on You Better You Bet.
to the second round for the fourth straight year, courtesy of one of the most dominant performances in NBA playoff history. In a game they led by as many as 61, they win by 51.
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Kostos on Westwood One Sports.
The legendary Mike Breen with the call. Feels like a long time ago that the Knicks pulled out the belt on the Hawks in Game 6 in Atlanta. This segment on You Better You Bet sponsored by Progressive Commercial Insurance, protecting small businesses with affordable coverage options. Get a quote today at progressivecommercial.com, progressivecommercial.com. Joining us now on the show to talk all things NBA in the postseason is the star of SiriusXM NBA Radio, NBA Today, weekdays 4 to 7 p.m. Eastern with the great Eddie Johnson, and his YouTube page, youtube.com/Termini Radio, Termini crashing out. Justin is as entertaining and informative as it gets. Follow his YouTube page and check out NBA Today. My friend, welcome back to the show. A little upset that we're not getting my Knicks against your Celtics in round numero dos.
You should be, because you're a Knicks fan and you wanted to go deep, and the Celtics would have been a lot easier for you to beat than a healthy Joel Embiid, a healthy Paul George. It is kind of BS, though. I'll be a little bitter here for a second in that I think it's a horrific thing for the NBA if Philadelphia does beat you guys. So Termini will have the Knicks pom-poms on here in this series, because you can't have a team when you are anti-load management as a league and you've got a team that played 38 games from Paul George and 37 from Joel Embiid, or vice versa there. They didn't even get 82 games combined. They're going to make a deep run. What does that tell the rest of the league? Oh, just load manage and keep guys fresh for the postseason. Regular season doesn't matter. So I think it's actually a bad thing if Philadelphia gets by you, goes to the conference finals, goes to the NBA finals, and wins in the postseason when their guys didn't even play in the regular season.
So let's start there. You're rooting for the Knicks. I obviously am as well. And I said earlier in the show, just for this, just so you know, JT, for some context, if the Knicks don't make the finals, Mike Brown's got to go, and I want Giannis at Madison Square Garden next year. No excuse for the Knicks to not make it. No excuse for them to not beat the Sixers. Do you think they will beat the Philadelphia 76ers and go to the NBA Finals when it's all said and done?
I do think so, and I think the reason is the change in the offense from Mike Brown, so you give him credit, even though I've been on his case all year. I didn't think that they should have fired Tom Thibodeau. They're now playing through Karl Anthony Towns up there at the elbow and initiating the offense through him, and that's what I've been calling for dating back all the way to last year when Tom Thibodeau was the head coach, so that's one key. The other is OG Anunoby. You can make the argument that Anunoby has been the best player in the entire postseason, not just the best Knick. You make the argument he's been the best player in the entire postseason, so I think that's where they get the edge. Now, the issue in going up against Philadelphia is, one, Embiid is unstoppable when he's on top of his game, and he looks like he's relatively healthy now. That's going to be a major issue, especially for a guy like Karl Anthony Towns, who can't stop committing fouls. And then if Jalen Brunson and the Knicks perimeter defense had issues with CJ McCollum, just imagine how difficult it is going to be to contain the fastest player in the league in Tyrese Maxey. So there are some issues. I wouldn't be shocked if Philadelphia won, but I am picking the Knicks, and I do think that they will win.
I think you'll disagree with this, but not 100% sure. So I said last hour, and it does sound disrespectful to the Pistons and the Cavs. I understand. I don't mean it to be, but it is disrespectful. I think this is the Eastern Conference Final, Knicks Sixers, because if the Sixers win this series, then you have to imagine that they're all healthy and Maxey's firing on all cylinders and Edgecombe keeps playing as well as he was in the first round against the Celtics. You're shaking your head. You disagree with that the winner of this series will go to the NBA Finals.
No, I agree with that. I think it's what we saw last year in the Western Conference, where it was Denver against Oklahoma City. In fact, I think the three best teams last year in the Western Conference were all on the same side of the bracket. I think you could make the argument heading into the postseason last year, the Clippers were the third best team. Denver knocked them off. Then Denver had to face Oklahoma City in the second round. So that, to me, was the Western Conference Finals right there. And it's similar here. And it would have been the same if Boston had made the next round. Not that Boston deserved to. Boston just horrifically coached series. Jaylen Brown wasn't any good. But I still think Boston, if they played the Knicks, it would have been the same thing. I think Boston's better than Cleveland. Boston's better than Detroit. So, yes, whoever comes out of Philadelphia and New York, I think, is going to the NBA Finals. Because what we saw in the first round from both Cleveland and Detroit was very disappointing. I mean, Tobias Harris is was the second, and credit to him, he was great. But if he's your second best player, then the Knicks should have no excuse to beat them. And Philadelphia, the same thing. And then you look at Cleveland. I mean, Donovan Mitchell, really nobody in the core four for Cleveland. Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, Donovan Mitchell, James Harden even had a good series. I thought Toronto was the worst team in the Eastern Conference postseason, and it took them 7 games to beat them. So I wholeheartedly agree with you.
How do you put JT, as someone who covers the NBA as closely as you do, and as a Celtics fan your entire life, how do you put this season into perspective after blowing the 3-1 lead, losing Game 7 at home on Saturday night to the Sixers?
Well, it's unacceptable not to get out of the first round, but I think it's also a success in that, they were this 2 seed when it was supposed to be a gap year. They got rid of a bunch of key names. They developed a lot of young guys. Now, why Joe Mazzulla didn't use those guys more in the series, that's a different question. And Mazzulla's now got some serious questions about his postseason resume. The guy's an amazing regular season coach.
I mean, he won a title.
And he won a title, but also he's lost as the favorite to your Knicks last year with home court advantage in the second round. He lost with home court advantage this year in the first round. He lost to Miami in his first year, where you give him a little bit of a break because he took over under very weird circumstances just as the season was starting, but lost in the conference finals to them nonetheless when he had home court advantage. So he's lost 3 series where he's been the favorite, but also he has a title and he's a fantastic regular season coach. But ultimately, I think it's disappointing now, but ultimately I think you have to say, hey, we had the second best record in a regular season where many people thought we were going to tank. And then Jason Tatum came back and immediately looked like Jason Tatum. So I think those are the positive aspects of it.
What do you say to the people? And I'm not saying it's everybody saying, I can't believe anyone saying it. And it sounds like I'm a little higher on Joe Mazzulla than you are. What do you say to the people who are saying the Celtics should fire Joe Mazzulla after the starting lineup in Game 7 and blowing the series to the Sixers?
I mean, the starting lineup was absolutely ridiculous. I was sitting on press.
to be fair, like that I'm defending him. That is true. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, like Luka Garza's in for Keita. And then people were like, wow. And they didn't even see initially that Ron Hart, people are going like, Garza's starting. And then you look at, then we sat there for like a minute or two and wait, Ron Harper Jr. is starting? Not that he hasn't been good this year, but he wasn't even using him off the bench in the first 6 games. And then all of a sudden he's in the starting lineup. And the other thing is, like, you had all season where Tatum didn't play. Okay. So it's not like they should be not accustomed to playing without Tatum, but they had never used that lineup once, not even for 1 second earlier in the season. So why are you throwing out there that lineup to start in Game 7? And those guys looked like they didn't know each other. And that was really the difference in the game. The Celtics, played them even, if not beat them the rest of the way after the first 3 minutes of the game, where they fell behind by like 9 points before he finally, made some changes.
I understand that this will be a guess from you, but you're as dialed in as it gets. Why do you think that was the starting lineup he chose? And I'm not asking you to defend it, just like what do you think the rationale was?
I have no clue on the Ron Harper thing, maybe just trying to be cute with the Garza thing. Now, I thought Garza should be playing ahead of Vucevic the entire time off the bench, but it's quite the jump from going to the 3rd-string center to the 1st-string center. The reason that I think he went away from Keita is Keita was just fouling too much at the outset of all these games, and he was getting into, you couldn't play him at the end of the games because Keita was picking up, 2 stupid fouls 3 minutes into the game. So I think it was to like maybe bring him off the bench, maybe not have him aligned with all the Embiid minutes, prevent him from picking up a couple of early stupid fouls. So the Garza thing is far more defensible from the Ron Harper Jr. thing. Like, I can explain the Garza thing a little bit. The Ron Harper thing was very, very confusing to me.
In case you missed it, which I doubt you did, but it happened recently, the Orlando Magic dismissed head coach Jamal Mosley after they blew the 3-1 lead and just whatever the hell happened in Game 6, couldn't buy a bucket, and then that extended into Game 7 yesterday against the Pistons. What about the Orlando Magic, JT, following the wreckage of this year, now needing a new coach? Maybe it's Billy Donovan. What's the autopsy here of the Orlando Magic?
Yeah, Germany did see that just before he hopped on, and, it wouldn't have shocked me anyway. I could have guessed that was going to take place today because it was the worst kept secret in the NBA. Now, if they had advanced, would that have been different? But he's essentially been fired even during the regular season. They were just waiting for the regular season to end before they let him go. And, he deserved to, listen, the last couple of years, I had him in the mix for Coach of the Year. I thought he did a fantastic job, but there's a difference between coaching a team that's young and upcoming and a team that's got expectations. And we talked to Jeff Weltman, their lead executive over the summer, he said they were looking to win an NBA championship this year. So they certainly fell well short of the expectations within the organization. And an idiot like myself at the outset of the season, I picked them to go to the NBA Finals. So I look like a real moron. They didn't even get out of the first round. They barely made the postseason. So if you do that when you have those type of expectations, you're not going to last. So not shocking whatsoever.
If Franz had played, they would have beaten the Pistons, right? And maybe you wouldn't have looked so dumb.
No, well, I still would have probably looked very stupid. They would have lost in the second round. Plus, they didn't have a great regular season. But I feel Franz is the best player on that team. Like, Banchero's got the highest upside, and you can't blame Banchero yesterday, necessarily for yesterday. And then he had a great game 5 as well, which they still
blame him for game 6, man. If he's going to be that guy, then you can't let your team go on at home on a drought like that.
Oh, he had a game where he shot 4 of 18 and a game where he shot 4 of 20. He's way too inconsistent. He doesn't have an outside shot. So I feel like he has the higher upside, but Franz is the better of the two players right now. Unfortunately, he can't stay healthy, which has been a massive issue as well. So, Banchero just has not developed like we thought he would. And again, I guess you can place that on Jamal Mosley. He's a young player, and you haven't developed an outside shot for him. But we'll see. I think they're going to have changes in regards to that roster as well. They were comparing Franz and Banchero to Tatum and Brown. Not that Tatum and Brown are Jordan and Pippen here, as we've seen in a couple of different postseason series, but they're certainly a lot better than Franz and Banchero.
You better you bet on this Monday. Couple more minutes with our friend Justin Termini of SiriusXM NBA Radio, youtube.com/Termini Radio. Make sure you subscribe there for all of JT's YouTube content. Let's hit both Western Conference series here. Any reason to believe, and I referenced this earlier, Brian Windhorst of ESPN reported, what I think a lot of people expect, right, that Luka is not close to returning for the Lakers, and maybe that means he'll miss a couple games, maybe it means he'll miss the whole series. Any reason to believe that the Lakers can keep this close against OKC, game 1 tomorrow night?
No, even if they had Luka, I don't think it would be relatively close. We saw it a couple of weeks ago where the game where Luka got hurt, Lakers came in one of the hottest teams in the NBA in March. They barely lost. I think they were like 13-1 heading into that game. They got smoked from the outset. And again, like you saw the way that the offense looked against the Houston Rockets. They lost 2 games to the Houston Rockets, who can't even tie their own shoes without Kevin Durant out there. Even with Durant out there, they're not very good. So if they struggled with Houston like that, and Oklahoma City is as good as we think Oklahoma City is, and if they have the MVP candidate and one of the great defenses of all time, I don't see how the Lakers keep pace with them. And I'll say this as well, like all the idiots out there, if LeBron beats Houston without Luka, he's the greatest player of all time. Like, that was just completely insane talk. Like, a first-round series makes him the greatest of all time. Give me a break. But I will say this. If the guy goes out there without Luka Doncic, even with Luka, and beats the Thunder, all right, then we can move him up a level in the GOAT conversation. But it was dumb to do that to beat Houston.
I think the Thunder are going to annihilate them. We'll talk more about that series a little later in the show. Timberwolves Spurs, game 1 tonight. We don't know if Anthony Edwards is going to play. The betting market seems to think he's not. San Antonio's a huge home favorite in game 1, a huge favorite to win the series as well. I feel like, JT, we do this every year with the Wolves, where it's like everyone picks against them, and they're the underdog, and there they are in the Final Four. This would be the 3rd straight year if they're able to make it happen. What do you expect from Wolves Spurs with the health of Anthony Edwards obviously up in the air, and Dante DiVincenzo obviously done maybe for a couple seasons now with the Achilles?
Yeah, and then Ayo Dosunmu's got the calf that kept him out of game 6 against Denver as well, after he was brilliant earlier in the season with in the series with the 43 points. I think you can get yourself ramped up when you initially lose a guy for a game or two, right? Us against the world. I don't think you can do that for a full series. So I think if those injuries happen against Denver at the outset, I don't think they would have been able to muster up enough energy and adrenaline to beat them. Now that it's at the beginning of the series, plus, San Antonio is a much better team than Denver is. They protect the rim, so you're not going to get easy baskets. Like, as big of a fan as I am of Jokic, I think he's the best player in the sport. Like, it's an open, it's an open aisle to the rim. Wembanyama is the exact opposite. You're not going to be able to score within 5 feet of the hoop. So I just don't think it's a good matchup, especially with the injuries. And, I could see this being maybe the worst second round in the history of the NBA, because at least not in the Eastern Conference. I think those will actually be 2 pretty good series. But in the Western Conference, we could be looking at something where it's 2 sweeps or it's, one team needing 4 games and the other team needing 5. I think it's going to be a bloodbath on both sides of the bracket in the West.
Give me like a hard 15 seconds on this. Is the Denver Nuggets championship window closed following losing Game 6 in embarrassing fashion to the injured Minnesota Timberwolves?
Absolutely. I mean, so I like, even in Aaron Gordon, he's a guy that you probably have to deal or, you can't build around, even though he's great because he's never healthy. And they're getting older. San Antonio, Oklahoma City are getting better. Did I give you a hard 15 seconds there?
You're the best. At Termini Radio on Twitter, youtube.com/Termini Radio, SiriusXM NBA Radio, NBA Today, weekdays 4 to 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll talk to him next week.
It'll be a 2-2 to Tejada.
That's the pitch. Low. JT, big Yankees fan. JT, thanks for joining us here on the show. The great Justin Termini. Take a quick break. On the other side, I'm going to tell you why the calendar says 2026, but it might as well be 1996 for OKC. I'll explain next.
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Kostos on Westwood One Sports.
Log into the BetMGM app to receive your Any Sport Parlay Boost token. To use the Parlay Boost token, add a parlay wager made up of any sport wagers to your bet slip and activate the token. If you win your wager that was made with the token, you'll receive extra winnings. Download the BetMGM app today. And as always, please, 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 please gamble responsibly. Game 1 tomorrow night between the Thunder and the Lakers and Oklahoma City. Now the calendar officially reads 2026. But for Oklahoma City, it might as well be 1996. Here's why. After the Lakers beat the Rockets in 6 games to advance to the next round, just think about it, right? LeBron James might be the most divisive athlete of my lifetime. I will have conversations with people, friends of mine, people that are like sports fans I just meet. So many people hate LeBron for whatever the reason, encore, whatever it is. Also, so many people love LeBron. He's a lightning rod, right? Doesn't it feel like now, though, not 100% of people, but that LeBron, now in his 40s, with no Luka Doncic, and Austin Reeves coming back towards the end of the series and literally saying after the Lakers won Game 6 that he told LeBron, thank you for letting me be a part of this. That LeBron has kind of become the lovable baby face. LeBron James, underdog. And everyone loves LeBron. People are rooting for the Lakers. Oklahoma City, this is about to be their Bash at the Beach 1996. Like when Hulk Hogan came out and dropped the leg on Macho Man Randy Savage and joined Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, the third man joining the New World Order. An epic heel turn. The Oklahoma City Thunder are about to come out and drop the leg on LeBron James. And unlike in the past, when people would have loved watching LeBron James suffer, loved watching LeBron James lose, you don't think with the way people talk about OKC, the way people talk about, especially with Luka not being there to flop as well, with SGA flopping, and all the negativity surrounding the Thunder, now it's about to be time for the Thunder close-up. It's one thing when you obliterate the Suns in 4 games in a forgettable first-round series. Now, it's LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers. All eyes are going to be on the series. Unbiased observers and fans are going to be rooting for LeBron and the Lakers. And the Thunder are going to destroy him. The Oklahoma City Thunder, the New World Order of professional basketball. Bash at the Beach 96, about to take place in May 2026. Final hour, power hour coming up next. I'm going to start by telling everybody why you're all wrong about the Cleveland Browns.
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Kostos and the crew. Presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Bring it up, Kenny. Final hour. Power hour. You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. Nick Kostos, our amazing crew, and you. The Power Hour and every hour here on You Better You Bet, brought to you by BetMGM. Make it legendary by downloading the BetMGM app and visiting BetMGM.com. Friend of the show, Lance Zierlein from NFL Media, will join us in 20 minutes breaking down the NFL draft. And just for the football fans in the audience, obviously I was on vacation last week, so didn't get to give you my thoughts on the NFL draft in its totality. We gave you the first round thoughts the last day I worked, which was a week from this past Friday after round number 1. We will be, over the course of the next couple weeks, giving you a bleep ton of NFL conversation, NFL takes on the draft and otherwise, because you know me and the way I obsess over the NFL draft. How about this? Bill Zimmerman and Tyler Morales can confirm this because they're both in the league with me. I'm on vacation last week, literally, like sitting at the pool, because the sun's so bright in South Florida, I got to go under an umbrella and put the towel over my phone because I'm doing a dynasty in a 50-man roster IDP with defensive players dynasty rookie draft. I am so in them streets, it would make your head spin. I'll break down for you, the Vikings second round linebacker Jake Golday from Cincinnati and why I think he's going to be an absolute stud. I got thoughts on every single team, and we'll bring them to you over the course of the next couple of weeks here on the show. But obviously, I'm off for a week. We do a ton of NBA on the show. We'll do some hockey a little later, some Kentucky Derby to end the show. All the bets coming up. Haven't had like that big piece of NFL news. We have a semi-big piece of NFL news that I will react to in a few moments, but tons of National Football League content coming up over the next couple of weeks here on You Better You Bet. One thing I want to do, though, a little off script from what I told the guys I was going to do, so just follow me here. Mike Brown building the graphics for the show. Mike, I'm about to do a little Star Wars here on the show because I forgot that today is May 4th. And yes, I like Star Wars. Yes, I am a nerd. I like video games. Yes, I understand. May the 4th be with you. I'll say that to everybody, right? So I just had retweeted onto my Twitter timeline what I believe to be the worst list in the history of lists. This is from GQ, which is still a thing. And I shouldn't say that, right? That's a little derisive. GQ's fine. And it's their list of the live-action Star Wars movies and shows ranked from worst to best. So I am going to credit, the list is ridiculous. So Return of the Jedi is number 1, which it is most certainly not. Revenge of the Sith is 2, which it most certainly is not. The Last Jedi, which is the second of the recent trilogy, which is horrendous. I have seen used pieces of toilet paper, not from number 1, from number 2, that are better than The Last Jedi. The Empire Strikes Back is 4, Rogue One is 11. So look, I don't even want to talk about that list, even though I just did. That's like when people on social media tell me, well, no one cares about your opinion. Well, you just commented, so you do, idiot. Much like I'm an idiot because I'm telling you I don't want to talk about the list that I just talked about. I just gave them some publicity, so shout out to GQ. What I'm going to do very briefly here, and I think it's going to be brief, we'll see how fired up I get. Here is the unimpeachable, absolutely correct Star Wars. I don't even know what the ranking is going to be because it's going to reach a point where I'm not interested in ranking stuff anymore because it doesn't really matter. But here is the list of Star Wars rankings, shows, and movies. Number 1 with a bullet is The Empire Strikes Back. And if you have a list of Star Wars movies or shows where number one is not The Empire Strikes Back, like, do you speak English? Like, was it not translated for you? Like, are you unaware of what happens in The Empire Strikes Back that you would not have it number one? It is, with a bullet, number one. Number two, this is semi-controversial, and I acknowledge Empire Strikes Back 1 is not controversial. It has to be number one. Number two is a little controversial. For me, the second best piece of Star Wars media ever produced is Andor, which is the show on Disney Plus that was unfortunately only 2 seasons, which leads right into Rogue One. It is a superb A+, gold star, incredible piece of storytelling with no Jedi, no lightsabers, just crazy stories. Like, yeah, the espionage element of it, it is magnificent. And I think Rogue One is third, which features one of the greatest final acts of any movie I've ever seen, where I remember watching it in theaters and being gobsmacked, like thunderstruck by the final, like, half hour of the movie. Like, I sat there in my seat. I was stoned. I brought my bowl and smoked it in the parking lot. It's being honest. But I still sat there for a long time after the movie in my seat, just being like, that was incredible. Absolutely awesome. So I would actually put Rogue One third. A New Hope is number 4, the original. How could it not be in the top 5? Of course it has to be. A New Hope is number 4. Now we can get a little interesting, right? Now, Revenge of the Sith, which is the third of the original prequels, right? Where Anakin turns heel, is actually a horrible movie. It's terrible. The script is laughable. And I think the magnum opus, obviously, is Obi-Wan and Anakin's fight. And the dialogue during that, it couldn't be worse. Well, I say the Jedi are evil. Like, I mean, come on. Like, George Lucas, what are you smoking, buddy, when you wrote that? It's terrible. The movie actually sucks. But watching Anakin turn heel and become Darth Vader is actually so good that it makes up for the movie being so bad. I think you could actually put it 5th, even if I'm acknowledging it's a terrible movie. Now we can have a conversation about Return of the Jedi, right? Which I think is the worst of the original 3, but is still a really good movie. Return of the Jedi can be up there. Attack of the Clones sucks out loud. It's horrendous and was the worst Star Wars movie until The Rise of Skywalker. Force Unleashed is okay, the first of like the new set of movies. It's not great. That I guess can be kind of up there. Everything else is terrible. The Last Jedi sucks. It's like activism, masked as a Star Wars movie. No one asked for this. The Force Awakens is the name of the movie. The Force Unleashed was a video game that I played back in the day. Thank you to Bill Zimmerman for the correction. Yes. I have been corrected by the other nerd on the staff, Mike Brown. I actually self-corrected myself first. Attack of the Clones stinks. Phantom Menace stinks, even though the fight at the end with Darth Maul is pretty cool with the music playing. The new set of 3 movies all stink. Force Awakens, I guess, is the best one. Obi-Wan Kenobi is maybe the worst TV show of all time. Actually, that's not true, because Book of Boba Fett is the worst TV show of all time. And the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian are great, and then the 3rd season is like the whatever's underneath my shoe. That is the correct Star Wars rankings for everybody. May the 4th be with you. You bet on this Monday morning here on Westwood One Sports. Okay. Couple NFL thoughts. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to get to here. I'm going to do my best. I know I said we were going to start with the Cleveland Browns. We need to start with the Pittsburgh Steelers because we have this courtesy of our friend Jerry Dulac, who has covered the Steelers forever locally in Pittsburgh. Quote, and this regards quarterback Aaron Rodgers, who has, it's May 4th. The draft is almost 2 weeks old. Drew Aller is a Pittsburgh Steeler. Aaron Rodgers is not. Now, last week, the Steelers did that first round, whatever procedural thing with Rodgers that basically that is, hey, we're pissed. Can you sign already? Dulac writing this morning, if Rodgers hasn't given the Steelers a decision by the start of OTAs on May 18th, 2 weeks from today, their latest deadline, and by the way, the Steelers have now given Aaron Rodgers almost as many deadlines as the Trump administration has given Iran. The Steelers' patience will start to turn into frustration and maybe something more. But Rodgers' inability to make a decision and sign a new contract has created a measure of annoyance that goes beyond the team's fan base. Wow. Who could have seen that coming? If only we could have predicted it. Now, what TV show, guys, is the meme of the guy in the chicken suit going like, who did this? And it's him that did it. Is that Arrested Development? I don't know. I know the meme. I don't know where it's from. Like, this is the Pittsburgh Steelers or that meme. Who did this? You did. This is your doing. They're surprised that Aaron Rodgers is... Aaron Rodgers doesn't care. And this isn't even like, should he or should he? I don't care about that. How do you not expect this? Also, like, what is he, like the 25th best quarterback in the NFL now? He winning you a Super Bowl? Never. It's never happening. Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy. Like, that, the eggs are in, the Steelers' eggs are in the Mike McCarthy, Aaron Rodgers basket. Those eggs went rotten almost a decade ago in Green Bay. And now that's the basket for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, what a surprise that all of this is happening. Now, look, my guess is that Rodgers will eventually sign with the Steelers. It would be, we're talking next level if he doesn't. I think he will. I don't think they're going to be very good, but I think he will. If he doesn't, you know what? Let's save that. Let's save those opinions for if he retires and doesn't come back for the Steelers. I'll just repeat what I told everybody after night one of the draft, and maybe Ahanichor turns out to be a great offensive lineman, and maybe getting passed by the Eagles for Mekhi Lemon turns out to be a good thing. Who knows? I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are turning the clock back to the 80s. Not the 70s, when they won 4 chips. Not the 90s, when Bill Cowher led them to a ton of success after Chuck Noll stepped down. Not the 2000s, when they won 2 championships. Not the 2010s, when Mike Tomlin always had them in the mix. No. The 80s. The dark ages for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think we're there. You bet on this Monday. Stay in the AFC North, and we'll save the NFC West for tomorrow with the Rams, because I got a lot to say about both those teams. On the Cleveland Browns, who actually gave us a bit of news last week, and I was thinking about it while I actually did an Instagram video by the beach. Boy! Shout out to Half Baked. What a great movie. Did a video on the Cleveland Browns and their quarterbacks. Derby. As Todd Monken looks to name his starting quarterback for the season, and they're not going to do that for a while, right? So a Cleveland.com report stated that Deshaun Watson is the front runner to start for the Browns in week 1. And Todd Monken kind of downplayed that a little bit, saying he hasn't made a decision yet. And of course, Todd Monken's going to say that. I've been saying for a while that Deshaun Watson needs to be the Cleveland Browns starting quarterback in week 1. And I believe he will be the Cleveland Browns starting quarterback in week 1. Now, please don't confuse what I'm about to say, right? I am about to endorse Deshaun Watson to start for the Browns. That does not mean that I think Deshaun Watson is a good human being. Who thinks that? With everything that like he's been alleged of doing, and, whatever. No one here is to defend Deshaun. No, I'm not trying to defend Deshaun Watson, the human being. That's not what this is. But let's think about the Cleveland Browns for a second here, right? And acknowledge that the Browns will likely try and get their quarterback in the first round of next year's NFL draft, right? So the Browns, I actually love their NFL draft, what they did in the NFL draft. You get your left tackle in Spencer Fano, who has a ton of versatility right on the offensive line. Double dip at receiver in 2 different types of receivers in KC Concepcion in round 1, Denzel Boston in round 2, and they get Emmanuel McNeil-Warren at safety at the end of the second round. Like, there were a lot of reputable mock drafts that had him going in the first round. I thought this was a slam dunk NFL draft by the Cleveland Browns. So now you have like 2 rookie receivers that you want to bring along, right? Along with a second-year tight end in Harold Fannin and a second-year running back in Quinton Judkins, who's working his way back from a gruesome leg injury, right? I know everyone loves Shedeur Sanders, and I don't mean this to like dismiss Shedeur. He's a 5th-round pick. Whether or not like you think, and you can be right, I can be wrong, but the NFL can be wrong, right? Whether or not you think he's a star, the NFL said over and over again he's not. Doesn't mean he can't be. I think it's unlikely. Dylan Gabriel projects as a long-term backup quarterback, which is obvious to anyone with eyes that pays attention. Deshaun Watson absolutely gives the team its best chance to win. Now there's a conversation to be had, like, should the Browns be trying to win? And if they are trying to win, or are not trying to win, they should start Dylan Gabriel. That'll give them the best chance of not winning. Todd Monken is 60 years old. First NFL head coaching job. You don't think he knows that if this season goes sideways, he could be David Culley? He could be a one and done. And the Browns next year hire a new coach, a younger coach, to go along with their soon-to-be first-round quarterback. He knows that. He's going to start the guy that gives him the best chance to win. I believe that's Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson never fit in the Kevin Stefanski scheme. It was obviously a move that the owner made in giving him all that guaranteed money. It was never going to work. He didn't fit what Stefanski wants to do. He fits the Todd Monken offense. You want to evaluate Concepcion in Boston and Fannin? Play the best quarterback. I think that quarterback's Deshaun Watson. This is not me saying Deshaun Watson is a better guy or teammate than Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel. I'm not saying that. But who gives the Browns the best chance to win? Deshaun Watson. It gives me no pleasure to say that. Take a quick break, and on the other side, we'll continue the NFL conversation with NFL media analyst Lance Zierlein breaking down the NFL draft right after this on You Better You Bet.
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Kostos on Westwood One Sports.
This segment on You Better You Bet, sponsored by Progressive Commercial Insurance, protecting small businesses with affordable coverage options. Get a quote today at progressivecommercial.com, progressivecommercial.com. Lance, can I say what you said off air to us about like the radio interviews that you do? Can I say, it's okay if I say that?
Yeah, I don't care.
All right, so Lance Zierlein is our guest right now, who does an unbelievable job for NFL media, breaking down the draft. He joined us before the draft, gave us a lot of good stuff. We are honored and privileged because Lance has informed us during the break that this is the last NFL draft interview that he will be doing until next season. Because, man, they probably work you to the bone, dude. Thanks for joining us here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, a lot of people like catch me after the draft because, like, all right, well, how did everyone do? I don't get as many as I used to before the draft, and I get more than I used to after the draft.
Yeah, I think it's just like the NFL. It's just this content factory, right? All right. So I want to turn this into a little bit of a different interview than just like who did well. The draft is like almost 2 weeks old at this point. I was on vacation last week. So I want to hit you with a couple specifics here. Now, I had planned to do on the show today. I'll do it tomorrow. Just like too much NBA in the show today. The San Francisco 49ers are a team that's earned a lot of criticism, right? Since the draft, right, for taking the Indiana running back, what people perceive to be early, dribbling the Ole Miss wide receiver, but the first pick at the top of the second round, oh my God, how could they make this pick? No one's ever heard of this guy. I kind of look at the Niners and say they win a million games all the time. Shanahan's a great coach. I think this is much ado about nothing. What do you make, Lance, of the Niners' approach and this idea of the consensus board and they don't follow it? What are your thoughts here on the Niners and the way they draft players?
Yeah, I think the consensus board conversation was just really overdone, to be honest with you. A consensus board relative to the general public is just people like me, where we have guys rated. Like, what else are you using? So what a general, me or Dane Brugler or ESPN, Daniel Jeremiah, whoever, use an amalgamation of all of these, our opinions. But, we're also not privy to injury stuff. We're not privy to football character things coming from teams and discussions. I mean, sometime maybe on some of them. But there's a lot of things that we don't get the medical reports on all these players. We don't talk to their teammates to find out what kind of teammates and what kind of leaders they are. So, and I also think one of the things that misses the mark a little bit is individual teams have a much smaller number of players on their board because some players don't fit their scheme, or maybe their medical their medical necessities, or their physical or athletic attributes are not at the level where they become outliers and they won't take exceptions. But with that said, what the consensus board is, it's just another way of saying, where are these guys supposed to go? Well, how do you guys know where they go? Well, for me personally, I talk to NFL teams and gather as much league intel as I can to help put together expectations of where a guy will be drafted. I've done this every year for the last 12 years. I've done this for the NFL. I use league sources, and I come up with round expectations for players. And they're usually pretty good. They're usually pretty accurate. This year was insane. This year, it was, as one GM told me after day 2, it was a Wild West starting in the second round. He's never seen a greater variation with draft boards from team to team. So I think this is something that was not just San Francisco. There were several teams who, because there's a chunk of 60 some odd players now who are no longer going into the draft, Nick, they're back in NIL and rev share. So, you got 2 full rounds of potential players who aren't there anymore. There's a greater variance of where teams are seeing these average to, in some cases, below average talent that has to go in the 3rd, has to go in the 4th, and in the 5th round. So I think there's always been that variance. Day 3, there's always been tremendous variance on day 3 from team to team, what their boards look like, because I go do some research after the draft's over. And it's always astonishing to find out how differently teams see these players. So this was like it usually is, where there's great variance. Only a team like the 49ers, like when I look at their draft, look, I didn't think Stribling's a second-round wide receiver. I didn't project it in the second. I thought he was going to go in the second. Whether you take him there or you try to wait until he they just didn't play games. They said, let's go get the guy we want. He fits our offense. That didn't bother me that much. Kalen Black, I thought, was way early. I mean, Kalen Black, I'm just going to fundamentally disagree with how they saw the running back there. I didn't love Caleb Black in that spot. The rest of their draft was, for me, okay. Carver Willis.
Well, can I ask you this just on Caleb Black?
Yeah,
because
go
because I thought whether like when I say you, I mean like the royal you, but you also, Lance. Like whether you agree or disagree with what Kyle Shanahan said last week, and again, like I'm a sicko, I'm on vacation, and I'm like watching this Kyle Shanahan video. His thing is like, if we like Caleb Black this much, right? And just for context, they had him behind Jeremiah Love as the second best running back in the draft. Then maybe there's a team that also really likes him, and if there's a team that really likes him, then we may have to take him around early. So I guess where I'm heading with this is like, you can or other, and it seems like most people agree with you and teams agree with you, right, Lance, that don't think he's that good. But I kind of understand at least the thought process behind the Niners doing what they did, even if the result doesn't turn out to be what they expect. And it's just like, I just feel like the criticism's a little too much, I guess, is where I'm going with the Niners.
Yeah, I would agree with that to an extent. Yeah, I think the one problem I have is when you talk about, well, we just do what we do, you really need to be knowing what where the rest of the league might see. See, I had a team reach out to me and say, where do you think this tackle is going to go? And I said round 3-4 is where I'm projecting him. That's what my intel says, sometime at the back end of 3 and early 4. And they're checking because they're trying to – these teams talk to other teams. They have – a lot of times it's pro personnel directors or college directors of scouting, guys who are on the road with each other. They might discuss players, and they try to just get a feel for, how do you guys, especially if they're teams in different divisions or whatever, maybe they have different needs, team needs. There are discussions. There's a lot of guys who've worked with each other who are friends, and they'll have discussions about where players go. Teams will try to put together an idea of where they think different players could potentially go. It's their own idea of a quote-unquote consensus. It's their own board of what they think the league will think about certain players. If you tell me you're not doing that, I got a problem with that, because then you turn into Bill Belichick just drafting guys just any old place you want. Because what you're saying, Nick, is the same thing Bill Belichick used to do. It was like he was just a mad genius at first when they were winning. He'd draft guys where no one expected. We had no idea what Bill Belichick was ever going to do.
Cole Strange, the most famous example, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's just one of them. And then it turned into like, it was kitschy and it was clever until the whole roster's breaking down, because the drafting wasn't very good because Bill didn't have an idea of where to take guys. I really feel like he didn't have a good idea of where league value was. The only way you get the best value out of your draft is if you have some idea of league value. I'm okay with every once in a while stepping out and saying, we got to have this guy. And if you had Caleb Black number 2, that's great. But league value-wise, I'd be shocked if he went any time earlier than the 4th round. Any time earlier than the 4th round. And I didn't really talk to anyone who saw Black ahead of Jadarian Price. So, I don't know about all that. So, I don't know. I don't have any problem with you getting the guy you want, but I do think you need to work off of a fundamental idea of where players are likely to go relative to the rest of the league.
I don't want to turn this, so I'm not going to – we could do more on this topic because I find it fascinating, but I don't want to turn this into like a primarily Niners conversation, but it is really interesting, and I appreciate the perspective. I actually want to stay here, Lance, in the NFC West for a moment, and this question is less like, do you like the Ty Simpson pick for the Rams? That's not what this question is. Now, I did the show Friday after round 1, then I'm on vacation, right? But I'm consuming all this content. And what I said the Friday after round 1 is, it feels to me like McVay and Les Snead were not totally on the same page with this pick. And then we got, like, the Rams did their media tour, and it's like, well, actually, like, I'm actually happy, and I was just acting to make Stafford happy. And it feels a little bit to me like thou doth protest too much. Now, I'm not insinuating, to be clear, that McVay thinks Ty Simpson sucks. I don't think that. But it seems like something's up there. You're really plugged in with the NFL. What's your sense on the Ty Simpson pick almost 2 weeks after the fact?
My sense is twofold. Number one, I think there's some of that they need to smooth over. They make sure that everything's cool with the quarterback. And maybe one of the things you do is you put on a little show and you let them know, hey, whatever you have to do. Now, I also think that you probably cleared that with Matt. You let him know that, hey, you're our guy. We just rarely will you have an opportunity. We don't expect to be drafting 13th anytime soon, getting the number 2 quarterback in the draft. So we're going to do that. That makes sense for us. I think you also have to remember that there's been talk about Sean McVay shutting it down prematurely or early. I mean, he's had success at the highest level. We've heard that talk beginning. It was either last year or the year before. And Les Snead has to operate for what's best for the Rams in the long term. He doesn't really operate. He should never operate in 1 and 2 year windows. And right now, Matthew Stafford is probably realistically a 2-year window. And so, we can have other discussions about, well, how good is Ty Simpson going to be if he threw 45 or 50 passes the first 3 years at Alabama in no high leverage situations, started 1 year, and then has to sit 2 more years. He's basically sitting 5 of 6 years. How are you getting any better playing football? That's a separate conversation from Les Snead is trying to do what's best for the Rams long term, and let's lock in a quarterback right now who, can follow the Aaron Rodgers path of sitting maybe a couple of years and learning behind a great quarterback in Matt Stafford. So I think Les Snead approached it as, yeah, we could get a wide receiver right now or an offensive tackle right now in the first round, and our fans would be happy and it would help in our battle against, Seattle, presumably this year. Or I can do something which is going to be very rare, get our number 2 quarterback in the draft with the 13th pick because we're never going to be here ever again, and we need to do what's best for us long term. And that's what he chose to do. And I'm not sure that Snead and McVay necessarily Les has got to run a team for many, many years. McVay may be looking at this as, I want a Super Bowl next year.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. I think there's more than meets the eye here. And again, like this long apology tour that they've gone on feels to me a little bit like knowing human nature. Like thou doth protest too much. If it weren't that big a deal, they wouldn't have to say anything about it. So it feels like something that's going on there. You bet on this Monday. A couple more minutes with our friend Lance Zierlein of NFL Media. Lance, when you joined us about a week or two before the draft, you told us LSU corner Mansour Delane was your favorite defensive player in the draft. I am guessing you loved the Kansas City Chiefs move to trade up to go get him at number 6 overall with the Cleveland Browns. What are your thoughts on Delane and Peter Woods, the first-round haul for Kansas City on defense?
I love the move. You pick number 7 and pick number 8. 7, the Commanders, 8, the Saints. And then you also have to say, remember, you have to look at who's behind you because you can get jumped by teams, and it happens on a regular basis. The pick number 6 was for sale. Cleveland's pick was for sale. Everyone knew that. 11, Miami, and 12, Dallas, both had cornerback needs, big cornerback needs. So 7, 8, you at 9, 11, not so much 10 with Giants, but 11 Miami and 12 Dallas all had cornerback needs. So I thought it was really smart for them to move up and get the guy they wanted. They were able to get up there, get the guy they wanted, and they still had a draft pick at the back end of the first round where they could address another need. So that really wasn't a problem. I like that move, and I like the pick of Mansour Delane for the Chiefs. I like it a lot, even though lately they haven't been spending early round picks on corners. They did on McDuffie, but that's not something that they usually do, but they got a really good one. They got the best one on the board. As far as Peter Woods, I think that's more of a pick from 2024 where he was a little bit heavier. Usually you're better when you're lighter. In this instance, he was a little heavier in 2024. They played a defense that was more attack-oriented, and I thought he was a little stronger at the point of attack. What you see with Kansas City is they believe Woods has some upfield ability where his pass rush, they believe, is going to potentially be more impactful than some of the production might say. And if you watch tape, you can see he's got more ability to rush than Caden McDonald does, for example. So I understand it. They needed help on the interior. They're moving into a realm where eventually he's going to be playing next to Chris Jones. So I didn't have a problem with it. I mean, I have Woods more of a second-round pick, but you're drafting in a spot where they're really second-round grades anyway, so it doesn't matter. So I like what the Chiefs did. I like that they got the guy that they believe was their first defensive tackle on the board. I never like to look at it just in terms of my own personal grades on a player. I like to say, did you get the type of player that you like for the type of needs you have? Because people may hear me saying this and think, oh, well, everyone does that. No, everyone doesn't do it. And there's a lot of times you see teams. I didn't love the fact the Steelers got snaked on Mekhi Lemon and they went with Max Iheanacho. I would have Hunachor, I would have just personally done everything I could to trade back if I were the Steelers, because a lot of teams, when they get a player snaked in front of them, somebody trades up and gets a player you wanted, you immediately just jump back and you reset. You give yourself more time to rethink about the draft board.
And it feels like that's what the Bills did, right, with the report that they wanted Omar Cooper, and the Jets jumped them for Omar Cooper, and the Bills trade back and take T.J. Parker, the edge rusher out of Clemson. Final question for you, Lance, like 30 seconds for the answer because we're running out of time. Okay. The question is not, was the Jeremiah Love pick a good pick for the Cardinals? That's not the question. The question is Jeremiah Love going to go the way of Ashton Jeanty last year for the Las Vegas Raiders with not a great offensive ecosystem around him in 30 seconds?
He could. He's a little more explosive than Jeanty in terms of getting from first to second level. So that means he'll create for himself with speed a little more than Jeanty did. But there's a good chance that he'll face the same issues that Jeanty did. Look, if you don't have somebody blocking in front of you, it's hard to create for yourself if there's no creases. So it could be the same issues for him in year one. Like you're saying with the Raiders, hopefully in year two you make offensive line a priority and try to clear the way, not just for your future quarterback, but also your ace running back as well.
Maybe Carson Beck can play offensive line. 65th overall for Carson Beck when you need an offense. It's just like, it's why bad teams stay bad. My opinion. Lance, you're the best. Appreciate it, man. Honored to be your last NFL draft spot this year. We'll catch up down the line.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it.
Our friend Lance Zierlein joining us here on the show. Lance is terrific, breaking down the NFL draft and the National Football League. All right, trivia question of the day, courtesy of our executive producer, Bill Zimmerman. Billy Z, what do we got?
All right, Nick, we're going to see if this one's too difficult because last time I threw an NBA playoffs one at you, you drilled it. So we're going to try this again. Boston Celtics trivia. Now, the Celtics have lost a Game 7 at home 7 times in the franchise history. 4 of them were in the conference finals, 3 of them in the first or second round, including this 76ers game on Saturday. Who are the other 2 losses? Game 7 at home, not in the conference finals.
Can you ask the question one more time? I want to make sure I get this right.
Okay. So 7 Game 7 losses at home for the Celtics in their franchise history. 4 in the conference finals, 3 in the first or second round. One of them was the Sixers on Saturday. Who are the other 2 times they lost a Game 7 at home in the first or second round?
Wow.
I'll give you a hint because obviously the Celtics play longer. It's all this century.
They lost one to the Nets, right?
They did lose a Game 7 to the Nets.
Not the conference final.
But actually, let me look that up because I did look at that. That's not on my list. But they did lose to the Nets in 2021, I think it was.
Well, I was going to say, they lost to the New Jersey Nets in the conference final one year, I think. But I think lost to the Brooklyn Nets in the first or second round, I think. Well, I'll try to answer this question on the other side. Great question. I'm going to have to rack my brain for this one. We will talk some hockey. The Montreal Canadiens win last night over the Tampa Bay Lightning. A little on the Kentucky Derby, and all our bets for tonight to wrap up the show right after this.
Now, back to You Better You Bet with Nick Kostos on Westwood One Sports.
When the games get bigger, the crowd gets louder, and the excitement reaches a new level. Be part of the playoff action when you bet with boosted odds. Activate your odds boost token for any bet on the NBA playoffs, and you'll receive a bigger payout if your bet wins. Get ready for tip-off with BetMGM. Download the BetMGM app today. Thanks to our guests on today's show. Great job by Billy Z setting it up. The great Tom Verducci, our friend Justin Termini, and Lance Zerline, who joined us in the last segment. Bill, Tyler, Kenny, Dan, and Mike, our crew here on You Better You Bet. Before we close the show with a couple hockey thoughts and some bets for tonight, the trivia question, besides for the Sixers on Saturday, name the 3 other Celtics home losses in a Game 7 of the postseason, not in the conference final. So we were talking during the break. In 82, the Sixers beat the Celtics in Game 7. That's the conference final, though. And that the Celtics fans were chanting, beat LA at the Sixers, which is pathetic. Sorry, it is. So my guess here, Bill, and I want to give a tip of the cap to Emil Kramer, who's listening to the show, who tweeted me, and I think he's right about this, that the Magic beat the Celtics with Dwight Howard, because then the Magic beat the Cavs in the Eastern Conference Final. So I think Orlando is one of the answers. And then I'll double dip on LeBron James here with Cleveland and with Miami. And if I'm wrong, it's with the Brooklyn Nets in the Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving era.
All right, it was 3 total, so it was just 2 other ones.
Oh, okay, 2 other ones. So Orlando, and then it's Miami, right, with LeBron.
So Orlando is 100% correct. That is
okay.
A great job by that listener there. The other one, though, the Cavs, LeBron beat them in the conference finals when they lost
in 18
at Boston in Game 7. In 18, correct.
Okay.
The other one is actually the Indiana Pacers in 2005. Wow. That was Paul Pierce and Antoine Walker. They got railroaded in Game 7 by Steven Jackson.
Wow, so that's a good question. I'm a little sad.
But yeah, you dominated that one I had about the Hornets. I was just like, we're going to have to do a deep cut here.
Damn it. All right, good question from Bill. I thought I had the answer right, but another good job by our friend Bill Zimmerman. All right, before we close the show with bets, a couple thoughts on the National Hockey League from the weekend that was. And we could save some Connor McDavid stuff for a little later in the week when there's more real estate to work with. So, last night, while I think most of the country was watching the Cavs-Raptors in Game 7, the Montreal Canadiens were in an incredible Game 7 in Tampa against the Lightning, eventually winning 2-1 in a game where they had 9 shots on goal and beat the Lightning in Tampa and beat Vasilevsky in Tampa 2-1. On what was the name? Now his name's escaping me. Payhook, something like that. Who batted the puck out of the air past Vasilevsky with like 9 minutes to go. Dobish stands on his head, and the Canadiens advance to the next round to take on the Buffalo Sabres, who vanquished the Bruins in 6. I love this matchup with Montreal and Buffalo, and I do like the Canadiens to win that series and advance to the Eastern Conference Final. Just wanted to give some love to that epic first-round series with Montreal and Tampa, one of the better first-round series that I can remember in the National Hockey League. I said before the Flyers and Hurricanes both clinched their first-round series that I was going to like the Flyers in that series against Carolina. Game 1 did not go great for that thought. Carolina destroyed Philly 3-0, and I don't even think the score was as close as the final would indicate. I thought Carolina really whipped Philly. Game 2 coming up tonight. And last night, in case you missed it, Colorado in Game 1 beat Minnesota 9-6. That was the actual final score of the game, which is tied for the second most goals scored in the history of an NHL playoff game. And it's tied for second with a game that we saw back in 2022 in the Battle for Alberta, Game 1 of the series in the second round between Edmonton and Calgary. Calgary beat Edmonton in that game 9-6. The Oilers would go on to win the next 4 before getting swept in the Western Conference Final by the eventual Stanley Cup champion, Colorado Avalanche. My guess is that the Wild will not win 4 in a row against the Colorado Avalanche, who I believe will easily win Lord Stanley's Cup. And a shout out to Golden Tempo winning the Kentucky Derby in like something that felt like it was out of a video game and so far beyond the pack, coming all the way up to win in pretty epic fashion. The Kentucky Derby delivering yet again. I'm not look, I don't handicap horse racing. I listen to what smart people say. Shout out to my buddy Pat, who had the winner of the Oaks. I didn't bet that. Then I bet the Derby because he had the winner of the Oaks. So shout out, I did win some money on Golden Tempo. It was not my handicapping. I am not claiming to be a genius. I am not one. But I try to surround myself with smart people. We'll have some horse racing guests joining us for the Preakness, including our friend Mike Somich when we come up to that race in a couple weeks. And now, the bets for tonight. Kenny, please drop the dope-ass beat. All right. We will start in the NBA, where the Minnesota Timberwolves have been bet down from plus 13.5 to plus 12.5 tonight. And I'm going to bet the Minnesota Timberwolves today. Look, maybe San Antonio railroads them in this game, but I don't think Anthony Edwards is going to play. It could easily happen. I think Minnesota's got too much heart, too much grit. Small bet for me, Wolves plus 12.5, now the number. I will not be betting Knicks Sixers because I just want the Knicks to win. If I were betting the game, I'd probably just bet the Sixers to win and lean into volatility. But I'm not, so give me the Knicks, or just rooting for the Knicks as a fan. No bet for me on the game. In the National Hockey League, game one between Anaheim and Vegas. I don't think Anaheim's going to have as easy a time scoring on the Knights as they did against Edmonton, and we'll talk about Edmonton later this week. I'll take the under in the game. Give me the under with Anaheim and Vegas in game one of that series, and I'll also play the Knights on the puck line. Knights minus a goal and a half at plus 140. Couple bucks on the Philadelphia Flyers to even the series at a game apiece at plus 220 in Carolina against the Hurricanes. How about Angels White Sox with Jose Soriano starting tonight? He's been amazing for the Halos. Angels White Sox under 7.5. And if you have a soul, you need to be betting the Yankees tonight. Rest in peace to the legendary John Sterling. I'll bet the Yankees on the run line, minus a run and a half to complete the sweep of the Baltimore Orioles. And at the end of the night, hopefully all of us will be saying, Yankees win. The Yankees win. That does it for the Monday edition of the show. I'll talk to you all tomorrow on a Tuesday. Until then, I'm Nick Kostos wishing you minimal sweats, winning bets, the absolute very best of luck. Our pals Bleck and Abdallah coming up next on Westwood One Sports.